A former casino floor supervisor just revealed something that could save you thousands of dollars. After 12 years watching players from behind the scenes, she finally agreed to share which slot machines employees are specifically trained to avoid. Casinos don't advertise this information. In fact, during employee orientation, floor supervisors quietly point out certain machines and explain why staff members should never play them on their breaks. What you're about to learn comes from conversations with over 15 former casino employees who all independently mentioned the same machines. Machine number 1, Dragon Link. Walk into any casino and you'll see these machines packed with players hypnotized by those flashing gold coins. Sarah worked as a pit boss for 8 years at a major Las Vegas casino, and she watched the same regulars feed their retirement checks into Dragon Link every single month. She told us about one player who came in on the first Tuesday of every month, cashed his Social Security check at the cage, and sat at Dragon Link until the money was gone. According to Sarah, that happened like clockwork for 2 years straight. Here's what employees know about Dragon Link that most players don't. The hold and spin feature that gets everyone excited is specifically engineered to deliver near misses. You'll see those gold coins land just off the pay line over and over again, making you feel like the big win is right there. Internal data shows the quarter denomination version typically runs between 86 and 88% return to player. That means for every $100 you put in, thus the machine is programmed to give back $87 on average. But here's the part that made Sarah uncomfortable watching people play. That grand jackpot everyone stares at, the one prominently displayed above the machine showing recent wins, triggers statistically once every 400 hours of play. Think about that. 400 hours. If you played 8 hours a day, that's 50 days of continuous play before probability suggests you'd even have a chance at that jackpot. And if you think Dragon Link is predatory, wait until you hear what employees say about machine number 2, Lightning Link. Former slot attendant Marcus told us his coworkers had a nickname for this machine. They called it Lightning Strike, and they weren't talking about hitting a jackpot. Lightning Link looks almost identical to Dragon Link. Same gold coins, same hold and spin feature, same progressive jackpots stacked on top of the cabinet. But Marcus explained why employees considered this version even more problematic than its twin. The hold and spin bonus triggers more frequently on Lightning Link, and that sounds like good news until you understand what that actually means for your bankroll. Here's the psychological trap. Lightning Link gives you that hold and spin feature often enough that you feel like you're constantly winning something. The machine lights up, the coins start landing, and you collect maybe 12 times your bet, 15 times your bet, 20 times if you're lucky. Players walk away thinking Lightning Link treats them better than Dragon Link because they trigger bonuses more often. Marcus showed us internal documentation suggesting the actual return to player sits between 85 and 87%. And here's the devastating math behind those frequent bonuses. You're spending 80 to 100 spins at $2.50 each to trigger that hold and spin, which means you've invested $200 to $250. Then the bonus pays you $30. The machine celebrates. You feel like you won, but you just spent $250 to get back $30. Marcus told us about a regular player named Frank who switched from Dragon Link to Lightning Link specifically because he thought Lightning Link was looser. Frank played Lightning Link exclusively for 6 months, convinced he was getting better results because he saw bonuses more often. When Marcus ran into Frank at a grocery store 2 years after leaving the casino industry, Frank admitted he'd lost roughly $40,000 on Lightning Link during those 6 months. He still didn't understand the math. Before we get to machine number 3, which several employees told us made them physically uncomfortable watching elderly players, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Former casino workers took considerable risk sharing this information. Since subscribing helps us continue bringing you insider knowledge the gambling industry doesn't want public. Now, you might think progressive systems are the main problem, but wait until you hear about machine number 3, Prosperity Lion. This is the machine that made multiple floor supervisors use the word uncomfortable in separate interviews. Jennifer supervised a casino floor in Atlantic City for 7 years, and she specifically mentioned an afternoon shift she still thinks about. An elderly woman sat down at Prosperity Lion at 11 in the morning with what Jennifer later learned was that month's Social Security payment. The woman played for 11 straight hours. Prosperity Lion targets specific demographics through deliberate cultural design. The Asian-themed imagery, the lucky symbolism, the red and gold color scheme, all of it creates what gambling researchers call destiny framing. Players don't just feel like they might win. They feel like they're supposed to win, like the universe is aligning in their favor. According to technical documentation Jennifer saw during her supervisor training, the base game runs at approximately 86% return to player. The hold and spin feature that drives the game triggers roughly once every 150 spins. Most of those triggers result in payouts between 8 and 15 times your bet. Do that math. Spend 150 betting units chasing a feature that returns 12 betting units. The machine programs near misses directly into the hold and spin symbols, so you constantly see two symbols land with the third one just barely missing the screen. And the grand jackpot display sitting on top of the cabinet shows recent wins from other Prosperity Lion machines across the entire casino network, but it never shows the thousands of players who lost everything chasing those same jackpots. Jennifer told us watching that elderly woman play for 11 hours made her question her career choice. And speaking of machines that use psychological manipulation, machine number 4, Buffalo Extreme, takes these tactics to another level entirely. The Buffalo series has been printing money for casinos for over a decade. The original Buffalo, then Buffalo Gold, then Buffalo Grand, and now Buffalo Stream. Former slot technician David spent 5 years maintaining these machines, and he explained why Stream represents the worst version in the entire series. The return to player ranges between 85 and 88%, depending on how the individual casino configures the math model, but the Extreme feature is what David called the carrot on a stick. Buffalo Extreme adds multipliers to the free spin feature, 2x, 3x, 5x multipliers that appear on the reels during your bonus round. Players see those multipliers and convince themselves the big win is finally coming. David had access to the statistical distribution data, and he showed us something fascinating. Those high multipliers appear disproportionately on spins where you don't hit significant wins. You'll get a 5x multiplier on a spin that pays 4 times your bet. 20 times your bet total. After you spent 300 spins at $3 each waiting to trigger those free spins in the first place. David told us about a player named Michael, who hit the free spin bonus with a 2x multiplier showing on the first reel. Michael got 12 free spins, and during those 12 spins, he won a total of 18 times his bet amount. $54 on a $3 bet. Michael had spent over 300 spins, $900, waiting for that bonus, yet he walked away convinced he'd had a good session because he saw that 2x multiplier and got 12 free spins. The machine's design worked exactly as intended. But here's where it gets really disturbing. Internal casino reports David accessed showed Buffalo Extreme had 23% higher average time on device compared to regular Buffalo. 23%. That's not accidental. Every element of the Extreme version, from the multiplier visibility to the enhanced graphics to the modified sound package, was engineered specifically to keep players in their seats longer. David left the industry after 7 years, and he told us Buffalo Extreme was part of that decision. Now, if you think those machines are bad, machine number 5 is where employees draw an actual line in the sand. Cash Falls made 3 separate casino employees request transfers away from the section where these machines were located. Rachel worked as a slot attendant for 4 years, and she used a specific word to describe how she felt watching people play Cash Falls. Complicit. She felt complicit in what was happening to players sitting in front of those screens. The tumbling reels feature creates something gambling psychologists call continuous action reinforcement. Symbols cascade down the screen, disappearing and being replaced by new symbols that drop from above. It looks like a win is always developing, like you're always one cascade away from a massive payout. According to technical specifications Rachel saw during training sessions, Cash Falls runs at approximately 86 to 87% return to player, but the real manipulation happens in how the machine presents outcomes. Roughly 35% of spins are classified as losses disguised as wins. The reels tumble, Symbols disappear, new symbols cascade down, and the machine celebrates with sounds and animations, even though you just lost money on that spin. Tom managed casino floors for 9 years before moving into a different industry, and he specifically mentioned a conversation with a responsible gambling counselor about cash falls. The counselor told him she was seeing an increasing number of clients who played tumbling reel games, and they all described the same experience. They couldn't track their bankroll. The cascading visual effect triggered dopamine responses in their brains even during losing spins. The celebration sounds played regardless of actual profit or loss. They described feeling hypnotized by the tumbling motion, and several used the exact phrase that they lost track of whether they were winning or losing. Rachel told us about a woman named Patricia who played cash falls for 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon. Patricia kept smiling, kept playing, kept celebrating when the reels tumbled and the machine lit up. When Patricia finally stood up from the machine, Rachel watched her check her wallet and see the reality. Patricia had arrived with $2,000. She left with $600. But during those 6 hours, Patricia genuinely believed she was breaking even because the machine celebrated so many of her spins. Rachel described watching Patricia's face change when the reality set in, and that image stayed with Rachel for months. And if you think losses disguised as wins represent the peak of psychological manipulation, machine number 6. 88 Fortunes takes deception to places that made multiple employees use words like guilt and complicity when describing their work experience. Lisa spent 6 years as a casino host, and she told us about specific corporate directives she received regarding 88 Fortunes players. Internal player tracking data showed roughly 70% of people playing 88 Fortunes were over 60 years old, and management instructed Lisa to offer targeted promotional offers specifically to those players. Free buffet credits, discounted hotel rooms, birthday bonuses deposited directly onto their players' club cards. Lisa was told explicitly to cultivate relationships with 88 Fortunes regulars. The 4-level progressive system creates an illusion of growing opportunity. Mini, minor, major, hits and grand jackpots climb slowly on the display above the machine, and players convince themselves they're watching their chance to win increase with every dollar that gets added to those meters. The base game return to player sits between 86 and 88% according to internal documentation. But the progressive contribution rate is engineered to create hope rather than value. The mini and minor progressives reset so low after someone wins that hitting them barely covers the investment required to trigger the feature. The major and grand progressives trigger statistically once every 800 to 1200 hours of play. Lisa explained that casino hosts were taught to never mention those statistics to players. The always pay format shows 243 ways to win on every spin, and creating frequent small wins that feel significant but don't cover the bet cost. And here's the pricing manipulation that specifically targets older players unfamiliar with modern slot mathematics. 5 bet levels are offered, and the machine programming ensures higher bet levels provide better progressive jackpot chances. The minimum bet for reasonable access to the major and grand progressives ranges from $2.88 to $8.88 per spin. That pricing structure deliberately targets players who remember quarter slots from decades ago and don't realize they're now betting nearly $9 per spin. Lisa told us about a regular player named Robert, 68 years old, retired postal worker. Robert played a maximum bet on 88 Fortunes 3 days a week for 5 months, convinced the grand progressive was due to hit. He told Lisa during one of their conversations that he'd studied the patterns, watched which symbols appeared most frequently, tracked the progressive meter growth rate. Robert was certain he'd developed a system. Over those 5 months, Robert lost $12,000. Lisa was required to maintain that relationship, offer him promotional incentives, encourage his return visits. She described lying awake at night thinking about Robert sitting in front of that machine, watching those progressive meters climb, believing his system would pay off. Several employees mentioned 88 Fortunes specifically when discussing why they ultimately left casino work. We're getting to the final 2 machines now, and these are the ones that made employees question whether they could ethically continue in the gambling industry at all. Machine number 7. Wheel of Fortune 4D. Angela supervised casino floors for 12 years before she walked away from the industry entirely, and she told us about one specific shift that became her breaking point. A woman in her early 60s sat down at Wheel of Fortune 4D on a Thursday morning with $40,000 in cash. Angela later learned that money came from a life insurance policy after the woman's husband died 3 months earlier. The 4D projection technology creates something former employees described as physical presence that doesn't exist. A massive wheel appears to float in space above the machine cabinet, rendered in 3 dimensions through specialized projection mapping. When you trigger the wheel spin feature, that projection wheel begins rotating with apparent momentum and physics. Many players watching that wheel spin genuinely believe they're seeing a physical object with weight and inertia, responding to natural forces. Former slot technician Kevin explained the technical reality behind that illusion. Every outcome is predetermined by the random number generator before the wheel animation even begins. The 4D projection simply displays a predetermined result wrapped in the visual language of physical cause and effect. According to internal documentation Angela reviewed during supervisor training, the base return to player ranges between 85 and 87% on standard denomination. The wheel spin feature triggers approximately once every 250 to 300 spins, and accessing the progressive wheel requires maximum bet, ranging from $3 to $15 per spin depending on denomination. Players believe they can influence the wheel outcome by timing their button press, by studying the wheel's rotation speed, by identifying patterns in how the wheel decelerates. That belief in skill transforms pure chance into something that feels controllable. The 4D visual effect creates what psychologists call presence, the sensation of being in an environment that doesn't physically exist. The wheel appears to have momentum. Players describe feeling like they can see the wheel slow down, like they're watching friction and gravity affect a real physical object. Near-miss programming builds directly into the wheel display. You'll watch that projected wheel slow down, crawl past the grand jackpot, and stop 1 position away. If the machine celebrates wheel spins that pay 10 times or 20 times your bet, amounts that sound significant until you calculate the 250 spins at $12 each you invested reaching that bonus. Angela watched that woman play for 8 straight hours, started with $40,000 and left with $3,200. Angela tried subtle interventions during that shift, suggesting break times, mentioning the restaurant, offering a complimentary buffet voucher. Casino policy prevented direct conversation about gambling behavior, so Angela watched helplessly as that life insurance money disappeared into the machine. The woman kept repeating the same phrase throughout the afternoon. "I can feel when the wheel will hit big." She believed the 4D projection gave her information, revealed patterns, that provided insight into timing. Angela quit her supervisor position 2 weeks after that shift. She told us she couldn't watch another person's grief get fed into a machine designed to exploit exactly that vulnerability. Now Angela's story represents individual tragedy, but machine number 8 represents something former employees called far more disturbing about the industry's direction. Over 15 separate interviews, a pattern emerged. Casino workers aren't just concerned about specific machines anymore. They're concerned about an entire generation of slot technology designed around what internal training materials explicitly call engagement optimization. Statistical data from former managers showed these new platforms achieving 40% higher engagement metrics than traditional slots, with average time on device increasing by 35 minutes and loss per hour jumping by 28%. What we're about to share comes from employees who spoke on condition of anonymity because they're genuinely worried about where this technology leads. They're not concerned about individual machines taking people's money. They're concerned about an algorithmic approach to addiction that's being rolled out across every major casino floor in America. And now for the final machine on this list, the one that kept multiple employees awake at night, wondering if they'd made the right career choice. Machine number 8, Skyrider. 3 separate former employees used nearly identical language when describing this machine, and they'd never met each other. Kevin maintained slots in Reno for 6 years. Diana supervised floors in Biloxi for 8. James managed operations in Connecticut for a decade. All three independently called Skyrider the future, and none of them meant it positively. The design splits your attention across two completely different display technologies. Traditional mechanical spinning reels occupy the top cabinet, physical metal reels with actual symbols rotating on actual axles. A digital video screen fills the bottom cabinet, running high-definition animated content. When you trigger the free spin feature on the bottom screen, those mechanical reels on top continue spinning throughout the entire bonus round. Its marketing materials called this dual-screen engagement. Kevin called it sensory warfare designed to prevent rational thought. Technical documentation Kevin accessed showed return to player between 85 and 88%, depending on casino configuration. But those numbers missed what was actually happening to players sitting in front of these machines. The split-screen design creates impossible attention demands. You physically cannot watch both displays simultaneously. Your eyes track the bottom screen where the bonus is playing out, but your peripheral vision catches movement from those mechanical reels spinning above. The anxiety about missing something becomes overwhelming. Players described feeling like they needed to watch both screens at once, like important information was always happening just outside their field of view. That anxiety translated directly into faster play, shorter decision times, reduced ability to track actual bankroll status. The mechanical reels triggered something Diana called nostalgic trust in older players who remembered traditional slots, while the digital screen provided the graphical sophistication that appealed to younger demographics. Skyrider deliberately targeted multiple generations simultaneously through contradictory design language. The mechanical reel sounds mixed with digital audio effects and synchronized background music created what James described as complete auditory overload. In premium seat configurations, haptic feedback motors built into the chair added physical vibration timed to both screens. Kevin showed us player tracking data from his former employer. Average session length on Skyrider ran 35 minutes longer than comparable single-screen games. 35 minutes. Diana watched players develop visible confusion trying to follow both screens, losing track of total bet amounts, losing track of win and loss status, losing track of time itself. James attended a management meeting where corporate leadership presented Skyrider engagement metrics and described them as off the charts. Nobody in that meeting discussed responsible gambling. Nobody mentioned the cognitive overload being deliberately engineered into the player experience. James told us that meeting made him physically uncomfortable, watching executives celebrate data that showed people were losing track of reality while sitting at these machines. Michelle had been a regular player at James's casino for years, always disciplined about time and budget limits. 2 hours maximum, $400 budget, never exceeded either boundary. Then Michelle discovered Skyrider. James watched her play through the security camera system one Saturday afternoon. 2 hours became 3.5. $400 budget became $850. When Michelle finally left the machine, James saw her standing in the parking lot looking confused, checking her phone like she couldn't understand where the time went. She told James 3 months later that Skyrider had triggered something different in her brain, that she'd developed genuine problems with gambling control for the first time in 15 years of recreational casino visits. But here's what made multiple employees question everything about their industry involvement. Skyrider represents what internal training materials called immersive technology platforms, and this wasn't one experimental machine. Kevin estimated 60% of new slot installations over the next 3 years would incorporate similar multi-screen, multi-sensory, attention-splitting design principles. Diana sat through corporate training sessions where leadership explicitly discussed engagement optimization, and nobody ever defined what engagement meant beyond keeping people in seats longer. James reviewed internal performance reports showing Skyrider achieved 40% higher loss per hour than traditional single-screen games, and management responded by ordering 8 more units. One former casino executive spoke with us on condition of complete anonymity. This person had access to strategic planning documents most employees never saw. The stated goal in those documents wasn't making slot machines more entertaining. The stated goal was total immersion, creating experiences where players forget their gambling at all, where the awareness of monetary risk dissolves into pure sensory engagement. Skyrider was just the beginning of that design philosophy becoming standard across the entire industry. Now you know which 8 machines 15 former casino employees told us they would never touch. And more importantly, you understand the patterns that connect all of them together. Hold and spin features that trigger frequently, but pay just enough to keep hope alive. Volatility manipulation through multipliers that appear on losing spins. Losses disguised as wins through cascading reels and celebration sounds. Progressive systems that create illusions of growing opportunity while the math remains brutally stacked against you. Skill illusions through 4D technology that makes predetermined outcomes feel controllable. And immersive platforms that split your attention across multiple screens until you lose track of money, time, and rational decision-making entirely. These patterns connect every machine on this list, and now you understand what casino employees learn during training sessions management hopes players never hear about. You're now part of a small group who understands the technical reality behind these machines. Walk past Dragon Link and you'll see those hold and spin gold coins differently. Watch someone play Cash Falls, and you'll recognize the losses disguised as wins that the player celebrates without understanding. Stand near Wheel of Fortune 4D, and you'll know that massive projected wheel is pure theater wrapped around predetermined mathematics. Casinos spend millions training employees to maintain these machines, analyze their performance data, and maximize their profitability. But those same casinos never advertise the information you just learned. They certainly don't post return-to-player percentages on the cabinet glass. They don't explain trigger frequencies or loss per hour statistics. Oh, they show you the grand jackpot displays and let human psychology handle the rest. Angela quit after watching someone's grief disappear into a machine. Kevin left because engagement optimization data made him complicit in something he couldn't ethically support. Rachel requested a transfer because she felt guilty watching Patricia celebrate losses for 6 straight hours. These weren't isolated decisions. Multiple employees across different states, different casino corporations, different roles within the industry, all reached similar breaking points around similar machines. That pattern should tell you something about where gambling technology is heading. But here's what employees find most troubling about the industry's direction. Skyrider isn't an outlier. What immersive technology platforms are becoming standard across new slot installations? Virtual reality gambling is already being tested in international markets. Skill-based gaming machines that look like video games are spreading through casino floors, targeting younger demographics. Cryptocurrency integration is eliminating the psychological barrier of physical money. Every innovation applies the same core principle that makes Skyrider so effective at keeping people in seats. Total immersion. Making players forget they're risking real money in systems mathematically designed to take that money over time. One former executive told us the goal is making people forget they're gambling at all, and that executive wasn't describing some distant future. That's happening right now on casino floors across the country. If this information changed how you see slot machines, please subscribe to this channel. Let me know in the comments whether you've played any of these 8 machines and what your experience was. And if you know someone who works in a casino, ask them a simple question. Do you play slots? Most of them don't. And now you understand exactly why.